Hey everyone, welcome to another Brewstorming video. So if you haven't seen my previous Brewstorming video, these are where I present slightly more raw ideas for decks that I'm building. I'm in the very early stages of. I don't have a really refined idea of what I want to be doing with them. And I'm really hoping just to kind of bounce ideas off of you, the viewers, and just kind of share my thoughts and what I want to play and how I want to play it. And, you know, eventually, just like with the first episode of Brewstorming, I built a deck around it and I featured it on this channel, and I'll probably be doing the same with Nighthawk Scavenger in the coming month or two. But I want to give you some ideas of what I'm currently working on and maybe see if I've missed something obvious. So let's take a quick look at Nighthawk Scavenger. It just came out and Zendikar Rising, and when I saw this card I was really excited. As someone who loves Tarmogoyf, I saw something that dealt with card types and graveyards. Doesn't matter in this case, it's, you know, slightly more powered down than Tarmogoyf's ability. But I saw that and I'm like, oh man, this is something we can do. It's also a rogue, which means we could probably synergize with other rogues. The brewing juices got flowing. It has flying, it has death touch, it has lifelink. I was like, what? The only thing it's missing is haste, but black doesn't usually get haste. So I'm like, okay, so this has everything. Can we use it in modern, and can we have a lot of fun with it? So as with most Brewstorming that I'm going to be doing, I want to give you the parameters of how I want to build around Nighthawk Scavenger. I'm sure there are a million ways that can be done. I'm sure there are a million ways that you would do it. But to make this a bit more precise, I want to share with you how I want to play Nighthawk Scavenger. So first things first, I want to play it with Tarmogoyf. This is for sure. Whatever deck I play it in, I want to have Tarmogoyf by its side. I want Nighthawk Scavenger to be a 4 of. I want Tarmogoyf to be a 4 of. This just makes sense to me because if you're playing Nighthawk Scavenger, you definitely have a strategy that deals with putting cards in your opponent's graveyard, and that will also feed Tarmogoyf, so that for me is a no-brainer. Secondly, I wanted some synergy with another rogue, and ideally that synergy also included filling graveyards, and Thieves Guild Enforcer does exactly that. And as you guys know, I love Thieves Guild Enforcer. I just featured it on my Sultai Rogues deck tech, and I posted some matches already. There's more coming. So Thieves Guild Enforcer just seems like a perfect matchup with Nighthawk Scavenger. Turn 1 you played, you've already started milling your opponent. Turn 2 you can play another one, or you can play Tarmogoyf, curving up. And then turn 3 you can play your Nighthawk Scavenger, which also triggers Thieves Guild Enforcer's ability. But by then, your Nighthawk Scavenger is at least a 3/3, if not potentially a 4/3, depending on the deck that you're playing against. So a 4/3 flying death touch lifelink for 3 mana is pretty darn good, if you ask me. Yes, it dies to bolt, but listen, a lot of creatures die to bolt in modern, and they're still played. I mean, just look at humans as an example. So as long as there's good synergy with a boltable creature, I think it's perfectly fine to play it. And it's not the crux of this deck, so or whatever deck I end up playing it in. If Nighthawk Scavenger gets bolted, I mean, there's still a Tarmogoyf, right? So there's still something back up there. So these were the parameters, and obviously that means that this only works in Jund and Sultai, at least in terms of competitive, you know, it being potentially competitive, right? Yes, you could play with white as well, but for me, these two tricolor combos make the most sense. So if we're talking about Sultai, these are the cards that I'm currently thinking about including in the deck. The exact numbers are going to vary, but if I'm thinking of playing black, green, and a color, and that color is blue, these are the type of cards that I would want to play with in that kind of a deck. So Euro, I mean, listen, hate it or love it. I'm in between. I love it when I'm playing it, and I hate it when I'm playing against it. So you know, Euro is still a thing, and you would be missing out on not playing Euro when you're playing Green Blue X. So Euro definitely has to fit into that strategy. Yes, it's kind of a non-bow, since you have to, when you escape it, you have to exile 5 cards from your graveyard, but that's usually not a big issue. You're filling up your graveyard quite a bit. Thought Scour is there as well if you need to fill up your graveyard as opposed to your opponent's. So I think Euro definitely has some playability here. And by that I mean a lot of playability. I don't think you're going to be crying that you're emptying your graveyard a bit and potentially shrinking your Tarmogoyf, because you're getting a 6/6 Euro. So I think Euro would make sense here in some number. I don't know if it would be a 4 of though. Thought Scour, usually when I'm playing Thought Scour in my Team or Delver decks, I'm targeting myself. to mill myself, but in this case, you might be wanting to mill your opponent. Yes, you have the mill ability with Thieves Guild Enforcer, but Thought Scour does the same thing. You mill your opponent for 2, and you draw a card. So there's some power there. You're going to be potentially powering up Nighthawk Scavenger, and there's some good synergy there. And, you know, it makes sense, and you have access to blue, so why not play it? I'm not sure about the number. 4 might be a bit too much, but 3 is probably a good sweet spot. Serum Visions, hey, it's Serum Visions. If you're playing blue, and you're not playing some weird I mean, even the combo decks play Serum Visions, so if you're playing blue in Modern, you want to be playing Serum Visions almost always. Stubborn Denial, so apart from Thieves Guild Enforcer, Stubborn Denial is going to have Ferocious active pretty much all the time with Tarmogoyf, and more or less all the time with Nighthawk Scavenger. So it's going to be really easy to get your opponent to 3 card types in their graveyard most of the time, so a 4/3 Scavenger is a thing quite often, and if your Nighthawk Scavenger is a 4/3, odds are your Tarmogoyf is also going to be a 4/5 at that time. So Stubborn Denial as a 1 mana counter, hard counter for non-creature spells, is super powerful. There are very few decks that you can comfortably play it in Modern. I believe that Sultai, Nighthawk Scavenger could potentially leverage Stubborn Denial quite well. And lastly, I mean, you have access to Mana Leak. Keep in mind, blue has way more tools than what I'm showing you here, but these are just the tools that kind of came to my mind immediately. Of course, there's a lot of room to play around here. You can play Force of Negation, which I might play Force of Negation if I could find space for it. But keep in mind that there are some black cards that I'm not showing you here. So there's Fatal Push that you could be playing. There's Assassin's Trophy you can be playing. There's a lot of other utility cards that I'm not necessarily showing you here that you'll probably be playing, or I'll probably be playing in this deck. So we have to find a space for it. Moving on to Jund. So Jund strips away blue, and in its place you get red. And that means you also have access to a lot of cool, very efficient tools. So we can't play Euro, but we could play Kroxa. And Kroxa, hey, that's still an awesome Elder Giant. Alright? For a black and a red, your opponent is discarding a card, and if they didn't discard a non-land card, they lose 3 life. That's pretty good. That's pretty good every time it swings as well. And for only 2, you know, you're not going to be having trouble casting it early, and you know, it has a pretty detrimental effect. Keeping in mind that I'm probably going to be playing Inquisition of Kozilek and Thoughtseized in some number somewhere in the 60 or somewhere in the 75. So that plus Kroxa is going to be pretty powerful. Then you have Bloodbraid Elf. As the most expensive card in the deck, most likely at 4 mana. It's pretty much going to hit everything else, and you're pretty much going to want to run into everything else for the most part. That's why Jund plays 4 Bloodbraid Elves, and you never really go away from that. I would be remiss. I mean, I would be missing out if I didn't play Bloodbraid Elf. I'd feel like an idiot. So I think for the meantime, at least, a 4 of a Bloodbraid Elf makes sense here. Renin 6. I'm trying it out. I'm not sure. We have access to this Planeswalker, and Renin 6 is nothing to scoff at. So I think there's some playability here. Yes, again, it's kind of a non-bow with Tarmogoyf as it eats your graveyard, but realistically speaking, you're going to be fetching a lot. Taking 1 fetch back from your graveyard every time is not a big deal, and in theory, you don't have to take a land if you don't want to. You can just +1 it and have a +1, or you can -1 it and start taking out annoying creatures. Then you have Terminate. Hey, it's destroy target creature, can't be regenerated. That's something that red can't normally do without the help of black. So non-damage based creature removal is something I'm not used to as a teamer player. So the fact that I'm going to be playing Jund and I have access to that kind of removal, I'm pretty excited. Kolaghan's Command as well, a utility card, you could do a lot with it. Every mode on there is going to be relevant at any given point, and playing it in your main deck is also going to be pretty good. Especially the Destroy Artifact, with a lot of artifacts currently roaming the format. Having Destroy Artifact in your main is actually pretty good, so it's pretty important. And of course, Lightning Bolt. I mean, I don't even know why I included it in this screen. Of course you're going to be playing Lightning Bolt. If you're playing Red and Modern and you're not playing Lightning Bolt, you're doing something wrong. And yeah, so again, keep in mind, there are a lot of other tools that Black has at their disposal, that Black-Red, Black-Green have at their disposal that I'm not showing on the screen, but I'm just showing the highlights of what I'm currently thinking. So, what do you think? Nighthawk Scavenger. I'm actually pretty excited to keep building on this idea. I'd love to get your feedback, what you think, what cards you would include that I didn't necessarily include in this video. I'd love to hear from you. leave the comments in this comment section down below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe, please hit notification bell. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Follow me on Twitter. I keep pretty active there. I post, things there that I don't necessarily post on my YouTube channel. Of course, if you want information on or updates on giveaways, I also post it up there. And a big thank you to all of my patrons. I really appreciate the early support. If you're interested in becoming a patron and want to see what you can get out of it, there's a link in the description. And yeah, I hope to see you in the patron Discord at some point soon. Thanks and have a good one.